That's right. Thanks, guys. And yesterday we were talking a little bit about the Colonial Pipeline shutdown and how that was impacting the actual diesel markets. Today we've got our Washington correspondent, John Gallagher, live with us to talk a little bit about the reaction from the administration and the government side of things. John, thank you so much for joining us today to really discuss a pretty big problem going on right now.
Yeah, sure, Kaylee. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, what the Biden administration is doing, actually the issue with the shutdown is that as we know the government has already relaxed the hours of service rules for truckers, so they can get the shipments up there, get the fuel from the Gulf up to the Northeast. But depending on how long the shutdown lasts, they may need to issue waivers of this law called the Jones Act, which would provide more shipping capacity for those maritime capacity for those fuels. Now it might not come into play, Kaylee, because the company is saying they're expecting to be mostly back up and running by the end of the week. But that remains to be seen. But this Jones Act issue, it's always pretty contentious because the Jones Act requires that all cargo moving domestically between two ports in the U.S. be moved on U.S. flagged ships and ships that are built here in the U.S. too and are staffed by U.S. crews, and all the jobs that go along with that. So right now there are about 57 tankers that domestic tankers that fit that Jones Act description that could be used in the Jones Act trade. And supporters of the Jones Act say, use those ships first before issuing any waivers, because the waivers would allow you to put, foreign carriers in there. Because some of these foreign ships that pay lower wages to their crews and are less costly and can charge these fuel shippers cheaper rates. So that's the controversy. The Jones Act supporters want, ostensibly there's available, some of these tankers are available to be moved domestically, and they kind of get all up in arms whenever you have these emergency situations where the administration just kind of throws out a waiver that allows these foreign ships into the market.
And of course, this really truly is an emergency situation. And they did say that they were planning to be back up towards the end of the week. But talk to me a little bit about how it'll be going on maybe, 5 days of total shutdown before the time that they get up and running again. Talk a little bit about the impact that that's going to have overall on the market, and also moving forward into what kind of changes that we can see going forward.
Yeah, well, I understand that they're already predicting that fuel prices are going up. I think what they said today is 3 to 6 cents a gallon for gasoline. Now, I don't know how that translates into jet fuel that goes into those markets. But going forward, that could be obviously an issue, and that would give them more impetus to issue these waivers. And these waivers are done, anytime you have like an emergency situation, like a hurricane. I think it was about 2 years ago, we had 2 or 3 years ago, we had those double hurricanes in the Gulf Coast that affected supply chains down there. And those waivers were issued, and it was always very controversial. But this is the first time we've seen it for anything like a cyber attack. I think it's the first time they've even contemplated issuing waivers because of a ransomware attack. So we're kind of into a little bit uncharted territory there.
So since this ransomware attack affected one of these pipelines that's a main artery across the eastern United States, is there any type of prosecution that can come out of the government level to address what happened?
I'm sorry, Kayla, any kind of what?
Any kind of prosecution. So can the government take action to prosecute those who were possibly responsible?
Well, that's what they're looking into right now. There was a press conference yesterday. They were asking the Biden spokesperson what are these foreign actors or the domestic actors? And apparently there's all these cybersecurity investigations going to be going on to look into that. So I guess depending on how that comes out, there could be prosecutions but these guys are always really super hard to find. So I don't know. That remains to be seen, I guess.
And so I talked a little bit to John Kingston yesterday about how these companies prepare for and react to cyber attacks. And he mentioned when the cyber attack happened on Forward Air, they had actually just finished running a trial attack, so they were beefing up their own systems. Talk to me a little bit about if you know anything about maybe safety nets that the government has, anything like that to protect against these kind of attacks.
The government has been starting to require that that companies start reviewing their cybersecurity protocol. In fact, that was one of the executive orders that came out early in January from the Biden administration. Obviously, this whole cybersecurity issue has been going on for years now, but apparently, it takes something like this where it actually starts costing money for these companies to listen. And the Biden administration has tried to get ahead of that with an executive order that they put in place um, that they started in January, and they're basically asking pretty much almost every department level head to filter down and look at these reviews within the government for finding out where they can put in more protocols in place. So that could eventually lead to regulatory proposals, rulemakings from the different agencies that could actually affect enforcement for these companies to start actually adhering to tougher policies. So we could see that too.
And so pivoting a little bit to that idea behind pivoting away from fossil fuels with the Biden administration, of course, they're a little bit critical around the fossil fuels and tend to lean towards more renewable energy. Do you think that attacks like this that really highlight the dependence on fossil fuels is kind of a driving force to encourage those to make that pivot away from this towards cleaner energy?
I'm sure as these infrastructure committee hearings are going on right now in almost all the committees looking at Biden's infrastructure plan and the Jobs Act. I would really be surprised if the chairman, especially on the Democratic side, look to hold this up, not only in cybersecurity hearings, but in these infrastructure hearings to show just exactly what you said there, Kaylee, that this is evidence that moving to renewable fuels could actually be kind of a side benefit from getting away from these cybersecurity hacks that get into the more traditional infrastructure that's out there.
Makes sense. Really quickly, John, you wrote a pretty good article that we talked about yesterday talking about the crackdown on illegal dispatching across the trucking industry. Give us a quick little synopsis of that.
Oh yeah. So that was something. This issue between dispatchers and brokers has been going on for a long time, from what I understand, and it kind of came to a head again last year when these independent guys, these small truckers, came to DC to protest the low rates that were in the market due to all the surplus capacity at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and they got Trump's attention there, and shortly after that, OIDA, the association that represents these guys, asked for more clarification from the FMCSA on the contracts between all the parties involved. And the transportation brokers, TIA, came out. They kind of doubled down and said, we're not only want to get we want to get rid of these rules altogether. The heck with the transparency, because these are from a time when before, when things were regulated before deregulation. So they say they're antiquated rules. Mm-hmm. So that brought this whole controversy, the FMCSA, between what's a dispatcher, what's a broker, which are legitimate, which are not. And the FMCSA is looking at this right now, and TIA has said they're actually trying to get language in the highway reauthorization to crack down on basically these unscrupulous dispatchers that are out there. The thing is, both dispatchers and the brokers the dispatchers I spoke to also want these unscrupulous guys out of there as well. But they don't want to be required to be a broker, because that's kind of what they see that TIA wants to happen, is them to be licensed brokers. And that's the whole point. They don't want to work for shippers. They want to work for these small trucking guys.
Right. So they want to kind of make it legitimate instead of this kind of like off the side business.
That's right. And again, dispatchers want that too, at least the ones that I spoke to, because it's making these bad actors are kind of giving a bad name to both brokers and these dispatchers that are operating legitimately.
Absolutely. John, thank you so much for joining us today. If people want to give you a quick follow, where should they go?
Oh, at my email is jgallagher@freightwaves.com, and my Twitter handle is @John A. Gallagher #1.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. Have an awesome day. And